Matrics, welcome to Matrics. Today we are assisting you with your exam guide for English Paper 2. My name is Luni and I'll be assisting you to get all of your questions through to us. All you need to do is hit us up on our social media pages, search for Matrics, as well as our WhatsApp line. All of the details are on the screen. We do have a fun competition for you guys, so please stay tuned for all of those details later on. Today with me, I've got my sign language interpreter, Keta, as well as our awesome teacher, Gr12. Over to you guys.
Good day, everybody. My name is Ms. Gr12. I am an educator in Gauteng province, and I'm proud to be standing here today to deliver a lesson on English First Additional Language Paper 2. Now, you must know that this is actually a literature paper, which means that it covers your set works, the set works that you have studied with your educators. This is what the paper looks like. You must know that you need to always go into your paper, your exam room, knowing what the paper looks like, so that you are not stunned when you see it. A lot of learners, like when they come into an exam room, they like to go straight into the questions and respond. So it is quite important for you to know your paper, because unlike all the other papers in English, you cannot answer all the questions. Your questions in paper 2 look like this. You have got 4 sections. Section A covers novels, Section B covers the drama, Section C are short stories, and Section D is your poetry. Please remember, it's very important for you to only respond to the set work you have studied. Do not answer questions on set works or genres you have not done, because unfortunately, the examiners and the markers all of them actually have the responses, that is the memoranda. So when we mark your papers, we assume that you have responded to the question you have studied. So always remember, do not write a genre that your teacher has not treated with you in class. This is what the genres are, how the genres are actually subdivided. Section A has got Cry the Beloved Country, which is your novel, as well as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Please remember, if you have done these 2 novels or one of them, then you are allowed to answer it. You need to realize that your sections are subdivided into 35 marks. This means that paper 2 actually weighs 70 marks. So you cannot answer more than 2 of these questions. You may choose Cry the Beloved Country or My Children, My Africa. In section B, you may choose Macbeth or My Children, My Africa. Remember, you cannot answer both. And then, of course, your short stories. They cover the 8 short stories that you have done in Anthology of Short Stories. They also, when we go into section D, you've got your poetry. You have done the number of poems in your schools. Please remember that you will be asked 17 as well as 18 marks of each of the poems. At the end of your paper, in fact, at the beginning, once you have finished answering your questions, you need to go back to the information and instructions paper where you do what we call a checklist. Check if you have answered the correct questions and you have answered the correct number of questions. Do not find yourself ticking more than 2 genres. It has to be 2 genres. This is how you subdivide your timing when you are writing. Please ensure that you spend 60 minutes on each genre, because your question paper allows you only 2 hours to write. So spend 60 minutes for each genre. We have what we call taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy. When it comes to examiners, they will ask you questions on 3 levels. The first level is what we call the literal and reorganization questions. These are questions that you cannot at any point fail. Ensure that you get the mark. They normally weigh about 1 mark or 2 marks. So you need to ensure that you know these you must get no matter what, because the answers to these questions are in your paper. So you cannot afford not to win these marks. We have what we also call level 2 questions, inference questions. What does to infer mean? To infer, basically, you will find that the writer has somehow hidden meaning in the extract. So when the examiner asks you questions, you need to deduce, you need to make meaning of what the examiner wants you to do. And then we have the last level, level 3, the evaluation or appreciation questions. These are what we call questions that ask you about your head, or questions that ask you about your heart. You need to know, to tell the marker, do you agree? Is it a fact or opinion? Discuss. These are questions that need your opinion. What do you think? So always remember, your questions are going to come in these levels. Level 3 questions may not necessarily be more than 3. However, they weigh most of the marks in the paper. They go up to 3 marks, which means that they are open-ended questions, and you need to substantiate, give reason why you agree or why you disagree. You cannot just say yes. You need to substantiate your response. In literature, all set works have what we call building blocks of literature. These are setting, narrator, characterization, conflict, plot, figurative language, tone, and theme. In setting, this means that you need to respond to questions about where or when the story takes place. When it comes to narrator, you need to know if the story is being told by a first-person narrator, which means that person was part of the story, or it is being told from a third-person omniscient narrator, which means that they may not necessarily be part of the characters, but they are standing outside of the story and watching and telling us their point of view of every character that is in the story. Know your characters, and it's quite important, learners, that you do not mix up the names of the characters. You cannot put a character who is in the story The Last Breath and believe that that person is in the story called The Fur Coat, for example. So know your characters. Know why they say certain things. Know how they say certain things. And never, ever mix them up. Conflict. It may come as inner conflict or outer conflict, or it may come as conflict with nature. We have plot. This is what we call sequence of events. The story begins here, and it goes there, and it proceeds, and eventually at the end, it comes to a particular conclusion. Figurative use of language. I'm sure you know that figures of speech come in many forms. The ones that you may know are metaphor, simile, personification, hyperbole, sarcasm, alliteration, assonance. Please go back into your books and learn each one, what it means and what it stands for. And tone, this is how a character speaks. When somebody is sad, you cannot hear them saying, "Oh, I'm happy." No, they will say, "I feel terrible inside. I feel so much pain. I'm hurting." That is what we call tone. It is an emotion a character uses to say certain words. It's not what they do. It's not how they act or behave. It's the emotion, the feeling in which they say the words that come out of their mouth. And the last one is theme. Theme is the message that the story is telling us. So you need to deduce what is the writer trying to teach us with this particular story. How do you manage reading time? Remember, you cannot read a story without going first to the instructions. If you are not going to read the instructions, this is very important. This is where you will lose out. You will lose out on what it is you need to do in literature paper 2. So it is quite important for you to read the instructions. Use the table of contents. Remember, with literature, there will be a table of contents that tells you the different genres that have been covered in the paper. So it's very important for you to read the content so that you can locate your genre. So please ensure that you locate your questions from the beginning. When your invigilator is standing right there and saying you have 10 minutes reading time at 5 to 9 o'clock, this is the chance for you to skim and scan your paper, but then give yourself time to read the instructions. Read the extracts. Those 10 minutes are your chance to actually familiarize yourself with the extract that the examiner has chosen to ask you questions on, and decide which genre to respond to. Remember, this is how you manage time. It's very important that you learn to read, and you think about the extract. Where have I seen it before? I believe that I know where this extract is from. However, your examiner will give you clues to assist you in ensuring that when you finally write, you write right. I need you to look at this exam strategy. Your examiner will give you an extract. They will say this is extract A or this is extract B. And you need to note that they will write, read the following extract and please learn to read an extract twice. You will also be given a clue as to where the extract was taken. At the end of your extract, you will be given extra clues as to the book or the chapter or the act or the scene where this extract took place. Learn to read. It is quite important to help you respond to the questions correctly. So your next level of questions is inference. Remember, inference questions are the ones where you have to deduce or you have to make meaning. And these ones also, just like the literal and reorganization questions, they carry 40% of your mark allocation or mark weighting in whatever it is you've been asked to write about. An example of inference questions are explain, compare. What is the writer's intention? They never ask you if the statement is true or false. Your examiner will actually tell you that the statement is false. What you need to do is explain why the writer is saying this statement is true or this statement is false. What this means is that you do not, when you respond to the question, start with the word false or start with the word true. No, you just give the reason why it is false or why it is true. And of course, your multiple choice questions. Remember, with multiple choice, you will be given 4 answers, A, B, C, and D. Always write the symbol of the correct answer. Lastly, your evaluation and appreciation questions. Remember, in the beginning, I reminded you that these are questions that speak about you, your understanding, your opinion, what you feel about the statement that an examiner is making. Do you think? Comment critically. These questions, they carry 3 marks, which means they are open-ended questions. You are allowed to say yes. But please remember to give a substantiation. You are also allowed to disagree with the statement. However, remember that when you respond to these questions, you must write a paragraph full of a response, because no marker is going to give you a mark for saying yes only or for saying no only. Your mark allocation will come at the bottom, where you will either get 2 marks or 3 marks, depending on the level of substantiation that you've given. Is the title suitable? Do you agree with? Discuss the writer's use of maybe a particular figure of speech, or discuss the effectiveness of the title. Is it appropriate, this title? And these questions carry 20% of the paper, of the questions. So please remember that you need to always have a mental picture of your paper before go into the exam. We're going to go into a break now. See you now.
Thank you so much. Guys, let's take a quick break and we'll see you straight after this. Welcome back from the break, guys. If you've just joined us, we are assisting you with your exam guide to prep for the upcoming exams. Cool news, guys, we've got a great competition for you. If you're constantly running out of data, then this is just for you. Woza Matrix is bringing you the hashtag WozoWinner competition, where 2 lucky matriculants stand a chance to win 2 gigs of data. All you need to do is head on over to our Facebook page to enter the competition. Enough talking from my side, over to you.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope the lesson is going very well so far and that you are taking in a lot. I hope that you are getting focused and getting ready for your paper. That is your literature paper 2. Now let us look at how to analyze questions. When you analyze questions, what this means is that you adhere to the instructions that your examiner is asking you. This means that do not say more than you are requested to say. Therefore, when they say state 2 actions, don't give 1, don't give 3. State 2 points, identify 2 items, adhere to the number of words that you are supposed to write. Give 2 reasons, do not give more. You will be wasting your time. So now let us analyze the different questions. Firstly, let's come to character trait. What is a character trait? A character trait is basically who the person is, not what that person does. So it's not about actions, it's about the inner being of that person. So an example would be, what does this extract reveal about Isabel's character? This is a question that you will come across in My Children, My Africa. Do you see that it says reveal about that character? It means who they are inside, not what they are doing. Nothing to do with action. Here are some of your character traits that you may come across. Instead of saying someone is nice, for example, because that is quite vague, you may say they are cheerful, they are charming, they are caring, they're polite, they're respectful, and sweet and thoughtful. Instead of saying she's a mean person, rather say they are greedy or evil or impatient. Instead of saying irresponsible, explain, use correct vocabulary. They are careless or disorganized. They are sad, depressed, desolate, or lonely. If someone is responsible, it means they are studious, they are organized. We have more character traits: assertive, fearful, independent, anxious, unsure, uneasy, courageous, creative, timid, meek, shy, nervous, intelligent, clever, or smart. You need to familiarize yourself with the different ways of explaining someone's character. What this means is you need to learn to use the correct vocabulary. Don't say things like, he feels bad. Say the correct word. He is hurt. He is regretful. He's ashamed. Don't just say bad. Here's another example. What does this character reveal about Mr. M's character? What does this extract reveal about Mr. M's character? I'm sure you know we find Mr. M in My Children's and My Africa. Now, if you say he is educated, don't just stop there. You need to substantiate, which means explain fully in a paragraph form why you say this person is educated, for example. Mr. M is committed. Mr. M is dedicated. Here's an example of an answer you could give. How do we know he is dedicated? It is because he goes to school despite the boycotts. He's unmoved, he's stubborn, he's obstinate. He believes that violence is not the solution to the inequality of education. We go into theme now. A theme, as I have already alluded, it is basically the message of the underlying message or the big idea. It must be timeless, it must be universal. You may have different themes like social injustices, you may have a theme of love, you may have a theme of parenting. So it needs to be something timeless or universal. That, of course, is related to the story itself. A theme, sometimes in your questions, the examiner may give you a theme and they will say you must discuss that theme. Other times, unfortunately, they need to test your knowledge of your genre, so you will be asked to actually give the theme and then discuss that theme. Here's an example of a theme question. Friendship is one of the themes in this play. Discuss how this theme is relevant to Tammy and Isabel. And your answer could be because they're talking about the friendship between Tammy and Isabel. The school debate sets the scene for the budding friendship of Tammy Mbikwana and Isabel Dyson. They develop a meaningful friendship when they exchange information and meet regularly to practice for the literary quiz. Their friendship, however, is subjected to immense strain when Tammy decides to withdraw from the literary quiz. Their friendship withstands the test of time when Tammy jeopardizes his life to come and bid farewell to Isabel, and they part as friends. Remember, I've already stated, you need to give a substantive answer. It must be fully discussed. You cannot just write a statement of one line and believe that you will be given 3 marks or 2 marks for that matter. Let us look at another questioning form, tone and figures of speech. What is tone? Tone is how something is said. So if I say to you, I really love you, you can hear my emotion, my feeling. But if I say, I hate you, you can hear the anger inside of me, the hatred. So when you say something, it is the way you are feeling, the emotion you bring out when you are talking. It's not about what you are doing when you use tone. Tone is a voice. It is not about what you say, but it is about how you say it. It is the attitude that someone has in their voice when they say something. And your tone of voice shows how the speaker feels about something. Here's an example of tone as a question. Refer to lines 10 to 11. what tone would Tammy use in these lines? So you may say something like anger. That is his tone, because he's angry towards Mr. M. However, you need to learn to give us a reason why he would use anger as he says the words he says to Isabel about Mr. M. You need to substantiate your response and say he's angry because Mr. M makes decisions for him without asking him how he feels. And so he is not happy with Mr. M. Here's an example. A tone that Tammy could use is a bitter tone, or a resentful tone, or a determined or a convicted tone. He doesn't want to be remembered by or be associated in any way with Zolile High School, for example. Identify the different figures of speech used. Please note, learners, that these questions, whether you like it or not, you are going to find them in your paper. Do not believe at any point that you are not going to be asked this question. For every extract that is you are going to come across, you're going to find a question on figures of speech. So learn them. We have already done the different figures of speeches, and here they are on your screen. Okay. Let's explain simile. Simile and metaphor are what we call the comparing figures of speech. When you compare one thing to another, you either use simile or you use metaphor. Personification. It is when you give an item that doesn't have human features, you give it human qualities. For example, the moon smiled back at me. We all know that a moon is a rock. It doesn't have a face. So you give it human qualities and say, the moon smiled back at me. Or you can say something like, the sound moved or shook the room. We all know that sound doesn't have human qualities, so it can't come and take you and shake you around. Hyperbole. This is when a writer exaggerates the information that is given. Euphemism. It is when you say something in a much lighter tone than you actually intend to mean. Onomatopoeia. This is when you write a word in the sound it makes. Let's say, for example, buzz. We all know that when you hear a bee fly across, it makes the buzzing sound. So we write the word as buzz. Vroom. You hear that sound. That's what we call onomatopoeia. Alliteration is repetition of consonant sounds. So if I say Betty bakes the best buns, I'm repeating the letter B, 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 B. That's alliteration. Assonance is when you repeat a vowel sound. For example, school is cool. We're repeating the vowel O. Irony is when you say something but you mean something else. Sarcasm is when you deliberately say something opposite to what you mean. So let us look at how to analyze figures of speech. When you analyze figures of speech, you identify the figure of speech. We use what's called IDE theme. You identify the figures of speech. You describe two things or something. You explain. This is what we mean when we say IDE. Identify, describe, and explain. This is the method you use. So here is irony. I've already explained that when you are ironic, it means that you say something but the opposite of it applies. So here's an example. Discuss the irony in Tammy's words in these sentences. Of course, you need to refer to the line that the examiner will have directed you to. An answer would be, it is ironic that as a primary school learner, Tammy used to love school. But when he's grown up, he starts to despise it and doesn't want to be part of the education system, which was called Bantu education. He feels disillusioned and disenchanted. Let's look at different problematic problems. In your paper, learners, there are always those questions that you feel are very problematic. And I need, when we come to you after the break, I need you to learn how to fight this, how to beat these problematic questions. So I will be giving you a skill on how to basically try and answer them. We're going to go into an ad break now. See you just now.
Thank you so much, Gr12. Guys, we are going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Don't forget to send us your questions and your comments on our social media pages as well as on WhatsApp. We'll see you straight after this. Welcome back from the break, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We are busy with your exam guide, so I won't waste any more time. I'll take it straight back to our teacher.
Welcome back again, learners. Now, before we went into an ad break, I remember I told you that there will be some problematic questions in your paper. Let's look at this word problematic. The root word is problem. This means that obviously you may find it quite difficult sometimes to respond to these questions, but never at any point should you tell yourself that you cannot answer them. I'm going to show you just a few of these questions. We call them problematic not because they are difficult for you, but because we find that when we mark them, there is a problem in the way you express your responses. Here's the first one, stage directions. You will only find a question on stage direction in section B. That is your drama question, whether be it Macbeth or be it My Children, My Africa. Stage direction questions basically want you to take over the conversation between the characters and become the writer. If you were directing this play, for example, what would you tell or direct your characters to do? Now remember, you are not being asked what you would make them say because they are already speaking the words. So when you come to stage directions and you ask, what would you tell your character to do? This means that body language. How would you want them to say these words? The emotion that they will be saying them will direct you in deciding what they would do. This is where you use the clue of tone in responding to a stage direction question. Here is an example. My Children, My Africa. If you were the director of My Children, My Africa, what would you tell Tammy to do? To do. This word here is very important. I'm sure you can see it doesn't say to say. It says to do, which means body movement, body language, while saying the words. Here's an example response. He should shake his head. Do you see that's doing? You are not giving them words. You are making them move. He should wave his hands. He should bang the table. So it is about body language, What should he do when he says, I hate him? That is Mr. M. Don't tell me about Mr. M. I don't want anything to do with him. Obviously, Tammy would either bang the table or point to show how he doesn't like this teacher. So you are giving the examiner movement. Another problematic problem. When you respond to these questions, do not come up with answers outside of the text itself. Always ensure that your answers are grounded in the text. So if you are asked, do you believe that Catherine Mba, in one of the short stories, The New Tribe, do you believe that Catherine Mba is a good mother? What she did when she let her child be adopted by the Allingtons, do you think that was a responsible act, for example? So you cannot answer that question by saying, no, she was irresponsible because mothers are not supposed to throw away their children. That is not grounded on the text. What you need to do is, she is irresponsible because she chose to stay with a man who doesn't want her son. She was irresponsible because she never raised her son. You need to ground your answer on the text. Justify your opinion. Give a statement and support it with evidence. Evidence where? From the text. Here's an example. The play My Children, My Africa ends on a hopeful note. Now, I'm sure you remember when Isabel, after she had found out that Mr. M has been murdered, she was quite sad and hurt. So she goes and says goodbye to Mr. M on top of Vapatsberg, on that mountain. So when she's standing there and she's doing her last monologue, she speaks about how she promises Mr. M in his death that she will carry on his legacy and make sure she does not give up on education. This is a hopeful note for readers. And if you are asked to discuss your view, here's an answer, how you started. Yes, I agree. It ends on a hopeful note. Or if you don't believe that, you say, no, I don't agree. It doesn't end on a hopeful note. So basically, when you are responding to an open-ended question, it means that you must give evidence and read and meaning and explanation. So you give your point. For example, Isabel is a symbol of hope in this drama. You give evidence why you say she is a symbol of hope. It's because she's exposed to difficulties that, with other races through Tammy. This makes it, now you explain why, you continue to give more evidence and explain why you still say I agree. It makes her aware of the plight of the greater South Africa. And you link your answer, your evidence to your explanation. Tammy and Isabel prove that different races can work together. So there's a link there. So thank you, learners. We have come to the end of our lesson. I hope that you have taken in a lot and that you are gearing yourself for that last paper in your exam. But as a last thought, I would like to give you some pointers. Please remember, you cannot go into your paper 2 exam if you have no knowledge of your genre. Ensure that you read over and over again the different set works that you have dealt with in your schools with your teachers. Please remember that you need to summarize your genres. What this means is that you can use the building blocks of literature to respond to questions that will help you understand and summarize your genre better. The different building blocks, of course, are setting, narrator, characters, conflict, plot, theme. I'm sure you know them by now. Tone as well. You only, remember, have to respond to the genres you have studied. You cannot just rush into answering question 1 just because you know 1 is where you begin. Remember, do a checklist at the end of your paper to see that you have answered the correct number of genres. Remember, in paper 2 weighs 70 marks. So you need to answer 1 section. You answer in section A, you answer 1 novel, or you go to section B and you answer 1 drama. In section C, you have to answer questions on 2 short stories. In question D, you have to answer questions on 2 poetry. But remember, do a checklist at the end. What is very important is that you cannot come up with your own numbering. Follow the sequence of numbering that you are given in your paper. So if your examiner says 1.1.1, you cannot now call it A or B. Please follow the correct sequence of questioning. And remember, most importantly, learners, there are 3 levels in questioning. You've got level 1, literal and reorganization questions, level 2, inference questions, level 3, evaluation and appreciation questions. Know your paper, and good luck.
Thank you so much for an awesome lesson, and Matrix, thank you for joining us. A big congratulations to all of our competition winners who will be announced on Facebook straight after the show. Don't forget to check out our schedule on www.wazamatrix.co.za to check when your next subject is playing. Well then, from me, Luni, Gesal Baka, and Keta, it's thank you and goodbye.